Have you ever wondered how one of the most powerful men in history, holding the title of Emperor of Rome, ended up marked by rejection and scorn? Who was Tiberius, the emperor many preferred to forget? Today, you will uncover the dark secret that defined his life and reign. Get ready to dive into a story full of intrigue, betrayal, and choices that shaped one of the darkest chapters of ancient Rome. After all, understanding the past is about unveiling the shadows that still echo in the present. Imagine the year 42 BC, a turbulent period in Rome's history. The city, which had already dominated much of the known world, was plunged into chaos. The assassination of Julius Caesar had left a power vacuum, and the Republic was on the verge of collapse. It was in this chaotic setting that Tiberius was born, a boy who, unknowingly, carried the weight of a divided family and an uncertain destiny. His father, Tiberius Claudius Nero, was a man whose loyalty shifted like the seasons. During the Civil War, he supported Julius Caesar, but after his death did not hesitate to congratulate the conspirators who eliminated him. Later, he rebelled against Octavian, Caesar's young heir. This decision put his family's life at risk. Meanwhile, his mother, Livia Drusilla, stood out as a figure of strength and prestige. Young, intelligent, and determined, Livia belonged to the powerful Claudian dynasty, one of the most respected families in Rome. She was everything Tiberius Claudius Nero did not seem to be, steadfast and reliable. But Livia's prestige was not enough to shield the family from the consequences of Tiberius Claudius Nero's choices. After a humiliating defeat against Octavian, they were forced to flee Rome. Imagine a couple carrying a baby while crossing seas and hostile territories with nowhere to go. First, they sought refuge in Sicily. When things worsened, they moved to Greece. It was a time of extreme hardship. They had no properties, allies, or resources. It was a daily struggle for survival. Have you ever tried to unravel what turned Rome into the greatest empire in the world, but got lost in a sea of details? Don't worry, you're not alone. Imagine finally mastering the most decisive moments in Roman history, learning the brilliant strategies of generals like Julius Caesar and Scipio Africanus, and understanding how their tactics shaped the fate of the world. With that in mind, I created the digital book, The 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire, where you'll have access to a clear, objective analysis packed with exclusive insights. Discover how Rome won battles once thought impossible and become a true expert in Roman military history. Don't waste time. Visit the pinned comment and secure your copy now. Take advantage before the copies run out. Now let's continue with the story. Despite the hardships, Livia kept her head high. She knew that even amid chaos, it was crucial to think about the future. After all, her son Tiberius had the potential for much more. Livia's resilience and Tiberius Claudius Nero's insistence on seeking a truce eventually paid off. In 39 BC, Octavian offered amnesty, allowing the family to return to Rome. But returning home was not what they had expected. Rome welcomed them with open arms, but reality was harsh. The family's properties had been confiscated, and reclaiming what was theirs proved nearly impossible. They were left without money, without influence, and without a clear plan to rebuild. Even so, Livia wasted no time. She was strategic, a woman who saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. And then, an unexpected turn of events occurred. Tiberius, now a smart and observant boy, was adopted by a wealthy senator. This adoption was not just a solution to the family's financial problems, it was an investment in Tiberius's future. It meant he would have access to a privileged education and Rome's political elite. For a boy who grew up fleeing and facing hardships, it was like being invited into a new world full of opportunities. Even at such a young age, Tiberius already showed signs that he was no ordinary child. He observed, learned, and adapted quickly. The experience of exile had taught him resilience, while the return to Rome introduced him to the political intrigues and the complexity of alliances that shaped the city. He was growing up amidst the whirlwind of events that would define the next phase of Roman history. Still a boy, Tiberius was beginning to walk the path that would lead him to unimaginable destinies. His story, thus far filled with twists and triumphs, was just the beginning of something much greater. Stay tuned, because the next stages of this journey will reveal how he became one of the most important figures in Roman history. Before we continue, I noticed you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. You won't want to miss all the content about Rome that I'll keep bringing. In the year 39 BC, Rome was a place of constant change and political intrigue. and Livia Drusilla found herself at the center of an event that would alter the course of her life and her family's future. Married to Tiberius Claudius Nero, a man whose political loyalties shifted with the tides, Livia had already faced moments of flight, financial uncertainty, and family challenges. However, when Octavian, Julius Caesar's political heir and future Augustus, crossed her path, a transformative opportunity arose. Octavian was young, ambitious, and calculating, traits that made him a central figure in Roman politics. He was captivated by Livia from the first moment. She was more than a beautiful woman. Her presence exuded strength, intelligence, and a sense of authority that few possessed. To him, Livia was the ideal partner to solidify not only his public image, but also his aspirations for power. Livia, for her part, was no stranger to the dynamics at play. She saw in Octavian's proposal a chance to secure stability for her family, especially for her son Tiberius, who was still just a boy. With her strategic vision, Livia understood that an alliance with the most powerful man in Rome could change her fate and give Tiberius the opportunity to grow in an environment that would prepare him for something far greater. The divorce between Livia and Tiberius Claudius Nero was handled with surprising serenity, which was uncommon at the time. Despite all the difficulties they had faced together, Nero seemed to understand that this was the best path for his wife and children. In a remarkable gesture, he even accompanied Livia to her marriage to Octavian, demonstrating that this decision was more a political maneuver than a contentious separation. Meanwhile, Octavian also quickly ended his marriage to Scribonia, a woman with whom he had already started a family. He justified the divorce by claiming he could no longer tolerate her bitter personality, but the true reason was clear. He was determined to have Livia by his side. This separation occurred just one day after the birth of Julia, Octavian's daughter, highlighting his urgency to seal the union with Livia. In 38 BC, the marriage between Livia and Octavian became official. This event was not merely a personal celebration, but a strategic move that united two important Roman lineages. Livia brought with her the influence of the Claudian dynasty, one of the most prestigious patrician families. Her presence alongside Octavian not only reinforced his political legitimacy, but also opened doors for her son Tiberius within the core of Roman power. For Tiberius, this change was a turning point. Until then, his childhood had been marked by hardships and uncertainties, but his mother's alliance with Octavian transformed his reality. He was now part of one of Rome's most privileged circles, where he interacted with prominent figures and had access to the best educational and training opportunities. Although the relationship between Octavian and Tiberius was more formal than affectionate, Livia's marriage ensured the young boy a significant place in the political scene. He began to be viewed as a potentially valuable piece in the empire's future, a youth who, in time, could occupy a prominent role in Rome's power structure. On the other hand, Livia quickly established herself as an influential figure alongside Octavian. Her role went beyond that of a wife. She was a counselor, strategist, and a presence that consolidated her husband's power. Her ability to navigate court intrigues and maintain respect among those around her was crucial in strengthening her position, and consequently, Tiberius's. This marriage not only altered the future of Livia and Octavian, but also laid the foundation for Tiberius's rise. Now, under the protection of a powerful stepfather and the guidance of a determined mother, Tiberius had the opportunity to prepare for what was to come. However, the alliances and challenges that would shape his path were far from over. As Rome continued to change, young Tiberius found himself increasingly drawn into the complex and dangerous world of imperial politics. His journey was just beginning, and the next steps would be crucial in determining who he would become. Follow this trajectory, where destiny and choices intertwine in a story that still had much to reveal. Let me know in the comments if you think it was fair for Tiberius to have been rejected. I want to hear your opinion. Imagine Tiberius, a boy who, at 9 years old, lost his father and saw his life change completely. He was no longer just the son of Tiberius Claudius Nero. He was now under the care of his mother, Livia, and his powerful stepfather, Octavian, who would forever be known as Augustus, the first emperor of Rome. This was the world Tiberius grew up in, an environment where every move, every decision, carried the weight of an empire in the making. Under Augustus's watchful eyes and Livia's firm guidance, Tiberius began to be shaped for something greater. He was disciplined, observant, and above all determined. Alongside his stepfather, he witnessed the behind-the-scenes decisions that shaped Rome, learning not only the rules of politics, but also the art of strategy, so vital to surviving in that dangerous game. At 13 years old, Tiberius experienced his first major public moment. It was Augustus's triumph, a monumental celebration of his victory over Mark Antony and Cleopatra. The streets of Rome were packed with people, the sound of cheers echoing as Tiberius, mounted on a horse, marched alongside the most powerful man in the world. For him, this was not just a parade. It was a baptism by fire, an introduction to the role awaiting him in the future. He felt the gaze of the crowd and understood, perhaps for the first time, that his destiny was inextricably tied to Rome's. But public success was only one part of his training. Augustus was not the type to leave things to chance. He saw potential in Tiberius to become a leader and began preparing him rigorously. Tiberius's education was intense and focused. He not only studied the traditional disciplines of a young noble, such as rhetoric and philosophy, but was also trained in administration, military leadership, and strategic decision-making. This preparation culminated at the age of 17, when Tiberius received his first major official position, quaestor. This was a prestigious role, usually reserved for older and more experienced men, but Augustus made an exception. He believed Tiberius was ready to take on significant responsibilities. As quaestor, Tiberius was tasked with managing finances and important administrative matters, a clear sign that he was already seen as someone capable of carrying on the family legacy. However, being a young man in such a high-ranking position was no easy task. All eyes were on him. Every decision, every move was scrutinized and often criticized, but Tiberius demonstrated a natural ability to handle these pressures. He was disciplined, methodical, and calculating, qualities that quickly earned him respect among his peers. While other young men his age were just beginning to discover the world, Tiberius was already deeply immersed in the mechanisms of power. He was learning what it meant to lead, make difficult decisions, and above all survive in a world where betrayal and intrigue were commonplace. But this was just the first stage of his journey. Tiberius's life was only beginning, and the challenges awaiting him were as great as the expectations placed upon his shoulders. Follow the unfolding of this story, where the young man who once marched alongside Augustus would become one of the most influential and enigmatic figures in Roman history. Before we proceed, help us continue bringing more content like this by liking our video. It helps us a lot. Tiberius became a central figure in the Roman military scene by leading one of the most significant missions of his career against the Parthian Empire. This confrontation was not merely a matter of territorial power, it was a matter of national pride and historical reparation. Decades earlier, the Parthians had defeated the Roman legions at Carrhae, one of the most humiliating defeats in Rome's history. As a trophy of that victory, the Parthians captured the Roman military standards, sacred symbols representing the honor and invincibility of the army. Recovering them was more than a military mission. It was about restoring Rome's prestige in the eyes of the world. When Tiberius was sent to the east, he encountered a delicate situation. Armenia, a crucial region serving as a buffer zone between Rome and the Parthians, was unstable. Without a firm ruler on the throne, Parthian influence was rapidly growing. Tiberius knew that a purely military approach could result in a prolonged and costly conflict, both in lives and resources. Demonstrating sharp strategic insight, he decided to combine military strength with diplomacy. First, Tiberius secured the support of the local Armenian elites, forging alliances that strengthened Roman influence. He backed the installation of an allied king on the Armenian throne, a move that ensured political stability without the need for direct confrontation. This maneuver reinforced Rome's position in the region and showed that Tiberius was not just a field commander, but also a heavyweight political strategist. But the true test of his leadership came when dealing directly with the Parthians. Tiberius organized his troops impeccably, displaying readiness for a confrontation should negotiations fail. This intimidating stance, coupled with his diplomatic skill, forced the Parthians to reconsider their positions. Tiberius negotiated a treaty that not only secured the return of the Roman standards, but also re-established Armenia's neutrality, turning it into a loyal buffer state for Rome. It was a complete victory achieved without the need for a devastating war. Although the success was undeniable, Tiberius faced a different challenge regarding his reputation. He was respected for his discipline, efficiency, and strategic vision, but his rigid and reserved personality made him less popular among the troops and the public. His younger brother Drusus was the opposite. With natural charisma and an ability to inspire, Drusus not only won victories, but also the hearts of his men. Tiberius, on the other hand, was feared and obeyed but rarely admired. This difference in personality led to inevitable comparisons. While Drusus was seen as a warm and approachable leader, Tiberius was perceived as cold and distant. He demanded perfection from his troops and maintained an inflexible standard of discipline. For many, this commanded respect but not affection. Still, no one could deny the results. Tiberius brought back the standards, a feat celebrated in Rome as a triumph that restored the empire's honor. He also stabilized Armenia, ensuring years of peace in a region that had previously been a powder keg. These achievements elevated Tiberius to a new level in Rome's military and political spheres. He proved himself a reliable leader and a skilled strategist, someone Augustus could trust with high-stakes missions. However, his journey was far from over. The tensions within his own family, the pressures of imperial politics, and the weight of his responsibilities would continue to shape his path and test his resilience. This victory in the East was a milestone, but also a preparation for even greater challenges to come. Tiberius's story is not only about his military victories, but also about the constant struggle to balance his roles as a general, a politician, and the heir to an empire that never stopped demanding more. And don't forget to get your digital book 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. It's very important that you grab your copy now before it sells out. In the year 9 BC, Tiberius's life changed forever. Devastating news arrived from a campaign in Germania. His younger brother, Drusus, had died after a tragic accident. During a military maneuver, Drusus fell from his horse, and despite all efforts, the injuries proved fatal. For Tiberius, this was not just the loss of a brother, but of his greatest ally and someone whose light shone brightly in Rome. Drusus was everything the people admired in a Roman leader. His natural charisma won over both soldiers and the populace. He was known for his ability to inspire those around him, turning even the most challenging situations into opportunities for glory. Compared to his more serious and reserved brother, Drusus seemed destined for a grand future. His death left a deep void, both personal and political. Yet even in the face of such pain, Tiberius displayed remarkable resilience. He took on the responsibility of bringing Drusus's body back to Rome. The journey was long and filled with ceremonies, but Tiberius, with his unshakable demeanor, ensured that all honors were rendered. This final journey was not just a tribute to his lost brother. It was a declaration that Tiberius was ready to carry Drusus's legacy on his own shoulders. The loss of Drusus, however, was just one of several events that would reshape the succession landscape in Rome. Marcellus, Augustus's young nephew, who many believed to be the ideal heir, had died prematurely. Shortly after, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, the brilliant general and Augustus's right-hand man, also passed away. With these deaths, the circle of potential successors to the imperial throne was drastically narrowed. These tragedies inevitably placed Tiberius in the spotlight. He had already proven his skill as a general in difficult campaigns and as an administrator in key positions of responsibility. While other potential heirs, such as Augustus's young grandsons Gaius and Lucius, were still inexperienced, Tiberius emerged as the only candidate with the experience and capability needed to take on the role of leader of the empire. Even so, his rise was neither immediate nor free of tension. Augustus, although he admired Tiberius's achievements, had reservations about his reserved and rigid personality. Tiberius was not the kind of leader who inspired passion, as Drusus had. He was disciplined, meticulous, and extremely efficient, but lacked the charisma that the people so highly valued. Nevertheless, political reality left few alternatives. Tiberius was the logical and reliable choice. With the weight of the empire now on his shoulders, Tiberius began to take on an increasingly central role in military and political affairs. He not only inherited Drusus's place in the army, but also solidified his position as Augustus's principal heir. Each new responsibility he assumed was a testament to his ability to face the pressures of power and the ever-growing expectations placed upon him. This stage in Tiberius's life marked the beginning of his transition from a respected general to the future leader of Rome. However, he knew that the path ahead would be full of challenges. The loss of Drusus and other heirs not only cleared the way for his rise, but also brought constant comparisons and pressures that would test his patience, discipline, and willpower. Much remained to be decided and achieved. Tiberius was drawing closer to the pinnacle of his career, but Roman politics was relentless, and he would have to navigate intrigue, betrayal, and the overwhelming expectations of an empire. This story is far from over, and the next chapters will reveal how Tiberius would face the complexities of a destiny that seemed inevitable. Augustus made a strategic decision that profoundly transformed Tiberius's life. The emperor forced Tiberius to divorce his beloved wife, Vipsania Agrippina, and marry Julia, Augustus's daughter, and the widow of Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa. This political move aimed to strengthen family ties and consolidate the line of succession, but completely disregarded Tiberius's feelings. The impact of this imposition was devastating. Tiberius had a happy marriage with Vipsania, built on love and mutual respect. Forced to leave her, he suffered deeply, and there are reports that he avoided encountering her after the divorce to avoid reopening old emotional wounds. The marriage to Julia, though envisioned as a political alliance, proved to be a disaster. Julia was known for her extravagant lifestyle and controversial behavior, traits that sharply contrasted with Tiberius's strict discipline. The two were incompatible, and conflicts were inevitable. Meanwhile, Tiberius began to realize that his position in Roman politics was being undermined. Despite his military and administrative achievements, Augustus seemed increasingly inclined to favor his grandsons, Gaius and Lucius, in the line of succession. This sense of exclusion was a severe blow to Tiberius, who felt undervalued and sidelined despite years of loyal service to the empire. Faced with these circumstances, Tiberius decided to withdraw from public life. In 6 BC, he requested permission to exile himself to Rhodes, and Augustus agreed. This period of exile marked an abrupt pause in his career. In Rhodes, Tiberius lived in isolation, far from politics and family conflicts. He sought tranquility, dedicating himself to philosophical studies and a simple life, but the weight of the circumstances that had led him to exile never left him. Even in isolation, Tiberius could not entirely escape the intrigues of Rome. His decision to abandon politics was seen by many as a sign of weakness or disinterest, and his absence fueled speculation about the future of the imperial succession. Augustus, meanwhile, appeared focused on preparing his grandsons for power, reinforcing the perception that Tiberius had been cast aside. The period in Rhodes was essential in further shaping Tiberius's personality. He became even more introspective, rigid, and cautious. Despite his isolation, the political landscape in Rome continued to change, and circumstances would eventually force Tiberius to return to the center of power. His departure from Rhodes would mark the beginning of a new phase, where he would face even greater pressures and need to prove his ability to lead the empire once again. The exile was not the end of his journey, but a pause before even more complex challenges. After years of living in isolation on the island of Rhodes, Tiberius received a summons that would once again change the course of his life. It was the year 2 AD, and the Roman Empire was shaken. Gaius and Lucius, Augustus's grandsons and preferred heirs to the throne, had died. Gaius, wounded during a military campaign in Armenia, did not survive. Lucius, on the other hand, succumbed to an unexpected illness in Massilia. These losses left Augustus in a delicate position. The carefully chosen heirs were no longer there, and the succession was uncertain. In this context, Tiberius emerged as the only viable choice. He had already proven his competence as a general and administrator, and although his relationship with Augustus had been marked by tensions in the past, the emperor knew that Tiberius was the best chance to maintain the empire's stability. Reluctant but aware of his role, Tiberius accepted the call and returned to Rome. Upon his return, Tiberius found a city different from the one he had left. Expectations were high, and he knew that his position was not just a privilege, but an immense responsibility. To formalize his place in the line of succession, Augustus made an important decision. He adopted Tiberius as his son. This act, more than symbolic, was a strategic move that established Tiberius as the principal heir to the throne. But the agreement came with a condition. As part of the pact, Tiberius was also required to adopt Germanicus, the young and charismatic son of his late brother Drusus. Germanicus was extremely popular and seen as a promising figure for the future. This adoption ensured that the line of succession remained strong and united, reinforcing the dynasty's control over the empire. With his position solidified, Tiberius began to take on crucial roles within the government. He was immediately tasked with leading military campaigns abroad, starting with conflicts in Germania and Pannonia. In these missions, Tiberius demonstrated the same discipline and strategy that had made him famous. He was not the most charismatic leader, but he was effective. Under his command, Rome consolidated its borders and dealt with rebellions efficiently. At the same time, Tiberius assumed a central role in the administration of the empire. Augustus trusted him to handle delicate political and diplomatic issues, assigning him responsibilities that required experience and firmness. Tiberius did not disappoint. He worked tirelessly to ensure that the empire's interests were protected and that the transition of power was smoothly prepared. Even so, the relationship between Tiberius and Augustus remained complex. Professional respect had grown, but personal tensions and the shadows of past conflicts still loomed over them. Tiberius knew that despite his new position, he still needed to constantly prove his worth, both to Augustus and to the people of Rome. Tiberius's return marked the beginning of a new phase in his life. He was closer to power than ever before, but he also faced pressures and challenges that would test his patience and leadership. This stage would be crucial, not only for him, but also for the future of the Roman Empire. However, the path was far from smooth, and the next chapters of Tiberius's story promised to be filled with difficult decisions and pivotal moments for his trajectory as the successor to the greatest empire in history. In 14 AD, after Augustus's death, Tiberius assumed the throne of the Roman Empire peacefully, without the need for disputes or conflicts. This was a significant milestone, considering Rome's history of political instability. At the age of 55, Tiberius became emperor, inheriting the responsibility of leading the empire that Augustus had built over decades of work and profound transformations. Tiberius was experienced, with a long military and administrative career that prepared him to rule. He had led successful military campaigns and held important positions in the empire's administration. Despite this, his reserved personality and reluctance to assume the throne were notable. Tiberius never hid the fact that he considered the role of emperor a heavy burden, referring to it on occasion as an unbearable position. Upon assuming power, Tiberius maintained many of Augustus's policies, ensuring stability and continuity in government. He was careful in managing the empire's finances, implementing measures that preserved the economy and avoided excessive spending. His focus on administration and strengthening the empire's borders ensured Rome's continued security and prosperity. However, Tiberius faced the enormous challenge of succeeding Augustus, a leader who was not only the founder of the empire, but also a near-mythical figure to the Roman people. Augustus had been deified by the Senate shortly after his death, and his legacy set an almost unattainable standard for any successor. Every action Tiberius took was constantly compared to Augustus's decisions and achievements. In addition, Tiberius's political relationships were complicated from the beginning of his reign. His relationship with the Senate quickly deteriorated. Tiberius regarded many senators as incompetent and untrustworthy, while the Senate saw him as distant and disengaged. This conflict contributed to a tense political atmosphere that defined much of his rule. Despite these challenges, Tiberius managed to maintain the empire's stability during the early years of his reign. He reinforced the borders and consolidated control over important provinces, ensuring security against external threats. His focused and disciplined leadership continued to ensure the administrative efficiency of Rome's vast territories. Tiberius's reign began with stability, but political tensions and the weight of succeeding Augustus presented growing challenges. He had the competence to lead, but his personality and the internal conflicts of the empire made his role increasingly difficult with each passing year. What appeared to be a tranquil start soon evolved into a reign filled with political dilemmas and personal challenges that would define his legacy. Tiberius was a strategic and disciplined leader, but he never won the heart of Rome. He lived in the shadow of Augustus, facing rejection and isolation. His reign brought stability, but was also marked by dark rumors, especially during his years in Capri, which fueled his reputation as an enigmatic and controversial figure. And what do you think of Tiberius? A misunderstood hero, or someone consumed by his own choices? And remember, whenever you want to learn more about how Rome was built and became the greatest empire of antiquity, just go to the pinned comment and grab your digital book 10 Battles That Shaped the Roman Empire. Get it today because copies are limited. Oh, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notification bell. See you in the next video with more incredible stories.